Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMac.com today.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio, Mondays at 1 and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila. Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio, Mondays at 1 and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories to help you reboot, rebuild, and reinvent your life on your terms. I'm Sheila Mac, your host, and today we have Bethany Perry here. She is an award-winning coach, best-selling author, and the founder of the Kaizen Woman. With over 20 years of experience, she is passionate about helping visionary individuals and heart-centered entrepreneurs increase their personal power so that they can enjoy success and satisfy at their soul level in relationships, in career, and with their money. All right, welcome to the show, Beth.
Thank you so much for having me, Sheila. I love your mission, and what better time to have your book come out and for this interview series that you're doing is just really incredible.
Yes, and that's the thing. My book is what this show is based on. It's Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this year we have had so many situations, so it is right on point. And each of us has an incredible story to share that we help each other that way when we share our stories. So I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe one of your tough situations in life and how you overcame those obstacles and got back on track.
Well, I love this topic, and it's something where when I was thinking about what story to choose, honestly, up until my mid-20s, it was challenge after challenge after challenge, everything from, situations of bullying or exposure to sexual abuse or financial hardships. And, it's like, you could pick anything. But what I love, especially about one of the things you say all the time about who are you being when you're doing the thing that you're doing. And it was my normal to just, things are hard and you get hurt and you keep going. And I recently heard about a doctor asking her patient, well, how much pain do you have? And the patient responded, just the normal amount. And the doctor said, well, normal is no pain. And while I don't believe that it's normal that anyone goes through life without pain or challenging situations, it doesn't have to be our normal all the time. And I think the most powerful example of in my own life really is that I went through all of these challenges and obstacles, and I think I did my first Tony Robbins program when I was in like 15 or 16. And,
wow.
I was really into personal development, and I was feeding myself possibilities throughout my, late teens. I left home at 17, put myself through college. And again, I was working 2 full-time jobs to do that. I graduated college and things didn't go as planned. There were toxic relationships that I got in and out of. And it was towards my late 20s that I really started putting together all of the pieces, not only from the coaching certifications that I have, but from the experiences that had been my normal, that it's hard, that you have to struggle and sacrifice, and you can't have too much. And I started challenging those rules, and I started figuring things out, and I opened up my own business. And I remember turning 30 and like, yes, this is going to be it. Like, finally, I'm old enough that people will take me seriously. And I made a decision that I was going to have good, and not even limit it to good. I was going for great in all areas of my life. And I met my now husband, and I, took my business past the 6-figure mark, and my health was good, and I was like, yes, this is it. And I think one of the most important things about resiliency is that it's a skill. We can all get it stronger in that way. And for me, the biggest challenge and hurdle came when everything was great. And then I had my first miscarriage. And it shook the foundation of everything, because that amount of pain was so different than, it was something that it was happening inside. I was mad at my body. I felt like a failure in a different kind of way. It wasn't like I could learn something and make it better, And so for me, the next 5 years after that first miscarriage, there were multiple miscarriages that happened. And, my at one point, my marriage was in crisis mode. My health would just really, my first degree is sports medicine. I know so much about the physiology. And so for me, those multiple miscarriages, it just required personal development and soul work on a level that I had never had to dig that deep before. And, the going through the process, I think one of the most important takeaways that I'd love for listeners to hear right now is that we get to decide what meaning we give a challenge or obstacle. Yes. And that, to me, when I just started taking responsibility for what I could do, for how I thought about it, for how could I use this for good, really allowed me to expand in ways I didn't even know were possible.
Yes, I totally agree. And I've had some other people as guests on the show that have also gone through the experience of losing a child or having a miscarriage, which is the same. And people don't always realize that. They don't want to talk about it. And it's important to have open conversations about these things. It happens to many women, and sometimes multiple times these days it seems to happen. And people don't understand that because it's been something we don't talk about. And it's important now. I believe this year we are starting to bring everything out in the open, shed the light on the truth, and we start to learn about more about what matters most. And it's people, it's relationships that matter most, and how we show up in all we're doing and who we're being. And we get back to the being. And how beautiful that you got to attend the Tony Robbins events at 16 and learn about that. I know I brought my youngest to, I traveled with the group and did all the programs for 7 years straight. And when my two youngest were teens, I pulled them out of school and we did the platinum program for 2 years, and we had a blast. And it was the open source learning that I wanted for my young adults. And I think that kind of training, that was an investment in my kids, and having our family time, and also having time to learn from the great masters that have so much to give us. So it sounds like that training really helped you move forward in your life, or have a resource of the personal development mindset to keep going when you had those rock bottom tough situations show up.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely did. And to be clear, I didn't get to go to an event. I think it was CDs. Okay. You know, way back when,
Okay.
when that was the thing. And it was a full program that I did on CDs, and it opened the door, and I, you know, started reading books, and just really, I was hungry to know and see examples of other people getting through difficult situations. And it's why I'm so passionate and willing to share my story. Like you mentioned, it's October is actually National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So what perfect timing for, as we're recording this right now, it's October. But it is something, you know, it's not like that's only something people go through in October. And, you know, for me, the power of the human spirit, when we choose what we focus on, and, you know, where focus goes, energy flows. And I remember at one point redefining, because I personally believe that if we have a desire in our heart, that it's meant for us. Mm-hmm. And I had such a strong desire to be a mom, and it was the top priority. It's why I sold my in-person practice and moved my business online, was because I wanted the family life of being able to be really present. And I remember, like I said, I was mad at I went through all the grieving stages, and I was mad at myself. You know, and for anyone that's listening, statistically, everyone knows, either if they haven't been through it themselves, they know someone close in your life who has. And like you said, Sheila, it's not been socially supported publicly. It hasn't necessarily been safe to talk about. And what I think, even the best intentioned loved ones don't know what to say. And so, you know, there's, first of all, saying nothing is really painful, but you know, you can be honest and say, I don't know what to say, but I love you and I'm here. And, you know, I'm happy to share other specific tips, since that's actually one of my strong points that I work with my clients on, is how to communicate and have uncomfortable conversations, if you'd like. But I think even more than specific things to say, right? Like that one really covers everything. You can just say, I don't know what to say, but I love you and I'm here. Yeah. And as someone who's been through it personally, I can promise you they will tell you what they need to say, or they'll tell you if they need you to just sit quietly with them. And if we can be willing to be uncomfortable with someone else's pain, it actually does improve our ability to stay present with ourselves in our own pain. And luckily, my story has a really happy ending. My beautiful 2-year-old son is out for a walk at the park right now while we're having this conversation. And, you know, but it was through the process, I really believe that I was able to detach from the pain, whether I ever would have been so lucky as to have my little baby boy. At one point, I redefined what being a mom meant to me, because I knew that it was, if it's on my heart, I'm meant to have it. But what if there's another way I could have it? And, you know, when it comes to being a mom, like could I adopt? Like there's that. I actually through my business, we adopt a student through a foundation called Chikambuso, which I lived with the founder. Everyone calls her Mama Linda. I lived with them in Africa, so that was a way that I could, make a difference in a child's life. And I started looking for what are just the smallest things I can do to help satisfy my desire for being a mom. And I eventually gave myself permission to redefine that. To me, being a mom meant having an impact on the next generation in whatever way I could. And I started living that in my life. I started, being available to make a difference, even if it wasn't the ideal plan or the way, right? The how is none of my business. And so by going through that process, that challenging 5-year period, really, where everything, I thought I had done it all the personal development, all of the skills training, business school on top of my other degree, all the certifications, successful business, successful marriage. Like on the outside, it was like, did I really tick all the boxes? And it doesn't make us immune to future challenges. And I think trying to get to a place where it's safe and comfortable at some point gets boring, in my opinion. But it's also as safe and as comfortable and as protective of that as we might be at any point. Life happens. So by going through, all of these really hard challenges in my younger years, I had developed a sense of resiliency that did support me in these tougher times. But in reflecting on it, because at this point now I was older and I was coaching and I was serving, and I really love to simplify what can be complicated topics. And, I pull from quantum physics and human design and psychology and body intelligence and emotional intelligence. And my signature process is called energetic intelligence. And it's how do you take all this stuff that sounds good and we see examples time and time again of it works for all these other people, but how can I start doing that, right? Like maybe you're not like me and you haven't had a terrible, challenging, just decades filled with challenges. And, whatever your challenge is, it doesn't have to be big and, hugely traumatic, right? Like trauma is subjective. So 2 kids fall out of an apple tree. One kid is like, I'm never eating apples again. That was the worst thing ever. And the other kid is like, oh my gosh, even though I broke my arm and I have a cast on, just means I won't break it again. I can go climb the apple tree again. It's personal interpretation. But I'd love to share like a 3-step process that anyone listening can start. You can do it without needing the Tony Robbins events or the books or anything. If that feels helpful, I'd love to share.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I love a good acronym, and this one is it's CPR. When you need some CPR for your relationships, for your mindset, for your emotional well-being, for your finances, this works everywhere. What area of your life needs some CPR? And it's 3 simple steps. The first one is get curious. Now, this isn't the same as worrying about it 24/7 and thinking all in your head about the how and how things could get wrong. It's about really stepping away from the emotional attachment to the situation as much as you possibly can. Again, this is part of developing your resiliency so that when challenges come up in your life, it's like a muscle. It's an emotional muscle, a mental muscle that you can build by getting curious and being as objective as possible and just looking at what is going on. What would so-and-so think about what's going on? Did you want to say something there?
Oh, yes. That makes me very curious. I love that. It is important. It is something sometimes we forget about the curiosity. You think about when you're younger, you have that open-mindedness, that curiosity, and then we start following so many rules and you need to be this way or that way. So continue. That's great. I love it.
Yes. So being curious, like a child, I love that. That was a perfect reminder that we all know how to be curious. We knew how to be curious when we were little. Mm-hmm. So even if it's more difficult, if you find yourself getting stuck in your head, remember you do know how to do this. It came naturally to you at one point and it can come naturally to you again. So dust off those curiosity muscles. The second step in CPR is possibilities. And so once we've been curious, we can look at, well, what are the possibilities for something that would be a solution or something that would have an impact on this? And now we might not always get it right, and you're not even making a decision yet. We're just looking at the possibilities. And this, the permission that we need to give ourselves in this step is to look at all of the possibilities, because oftentimes what people will do is they'll write down, okay, well, I could do this, this, or this. And that's the things that they would be willing to do, and that's how they would like it to get resolved. But the reality is that there's often more possibilities that we and when we're limiting to only looking at the ones that we know we like or want, then we miss out on the possibility of finding a possibility that we're not allowing ourselves to see from just the own self-imposed limits. So if you make a list, I'll never forget when I started my own business, I was the top performing coach at the organization I was working with. And I left to go out on my own and I was like, I got this. And this is when I realized I was great at what I did, but I did not know how to run a business. So I enrolled in business school, and I was not generating the income fast enough to keep up with my current lifestyle. And I ended up this is part of how I came up with the CPR. I looked at all of the challenging situations I've been through in my life and looked for what is the common theme? What is the common thread here? And I remember this is where I really pushed the limits of looking at possibilities, because I made a list of all the things I could do, including moving back in with mom and dad, or couch surfing, in friends' apartments, or trading in my car that I loved, or, eating ramen noodles every day, 3 times a day, what were the ways I could make this work? And there were some I was not willing to do. Like I was not willing to eat ramen noodles 3 times a day. Right. But just by seeing that it was possible, I actually got really creative and more aware about, my food budget. Where could I cut back in a way that is tolerable for me? So possibility is the second step. And then the third step, the R in CPR, we get curious, we look at the possibilities, and then it comes down to responsibility. And, not that many people get super excited about the topic of responsibility. Usually I personally do, just because I've seen that this is where change happens. This is where results shift. And it's when we take responsibility for the next step we're going to take. We can't control how other people respond or react. We can't always predict the outcome, but we can take responsibility for, making a change and then going back through CPR, like, okay, I'm curious, did that make it better or worse? Are there other possibilities now that I've done something different? Mm-hmm. Is there anything new that I could be looking at? And then taking responsibility for that next step again. So this CPR process, hopefully it's catchy enough that you remember it when you need it most, and that it really serves each of you listening in a way that helps you feel more empowered, that you can get through this. And when we're stuck in that place of, I don't know what to do, start here.
That is so true. What a beautiful way. CPR, that's perfect. We all need a little CPR this year.
You may need a lot of CPR this year.
This has been quite the year. So with that, I know that I wanted to go back to your experience as a mom and finally having your beautiful child. And there are so many different ways to have children in our lives and to fill that role of being a mom. Now, for me, I had one child, and then I was told, well, you can't have any more. It's not going to be possible. It's not going to work out, whatever. And so I I was like, but I thought I was going to have this big family and I love kids. And so next thing you know, I was foster to adopting 3 children. And how interesting that was. I really believe it was a soul contract, because with that, the next thing you know, I had my last 2 children. And I was like, wait, Doc, I thought you said this was not possible. And they're all very close and loving. And so that was when we're out giving and we're in our heart and we're doing from our heart based on what we're guided to do, everything shows up. And the children that were adopted into our family are just as much our family and brothers and sisters to my birth children. It's just a beautiful thing. And it would have never happened had I not had those obstacles and situations come up. And then I want to also talk mom to mom out there. For those of us who have lost a child either through a miscarriage or losing a child at a certain point, I lost my youngest son in December of 2019 to Wolff Parkinson, which is a heart condition. And he had it from 5th grade on. They did ablation, they did treatments, everything they could. And he lived a happy, healthy life. And then his heart went into an arrhythmia when he was asleep at his grandparents' home for the holidays, and he didn't wake up. And so that grieving process is something, I mean, if ever we needed a universal pause for our family, it was totally this year. And I took a good 6 months off to just be with the family and heal from that. And, you know, it never ends. You still have that forever. And so it's a sacred journey when you're going through a grieving process. And this year we've had grieving in many different ways, because we've had to grieve the loss of the way our life was before all these rules and restrictions, or losing a loved one, because there's so many people that we've lost this year. And I mean, I know 5 other young adults that passed away this year that were in their early 20s, 19, 20, that one of my employees lost her son recently in a car accident. And so, gosh, you know, it's something that we need to have open conversations about and know there is another side to that. It gives us resiliency and strength, but also to honor all the emotions that we may be experiencing. And one of the things I love to share on every show that's really important, that I actually learned from some of my friends, my rock star friends at BSA, is that there's this 211. Did you hear about the 211? Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't know about this. And I ask everybody, have you heard about this? And half the people I ask have never heard about it.
It's such an amazing resource.
Yes. And so this year, people that have never needed a resource need a resource more than ever. So I want to make sure to share about that real fast on the show, because that's something you put in, you Google 211 and your state in the United States, and you will get resources for getting grief support if you're going through the loss of somebody, or some kind of mental health help, or suicide hotlines. You'll get rental help with making ends meet and getting food on the table this year. For some people, it has been a struggle that they have never experienced in their life due to the circumstances that are way out of their control. And so I want to make sure that that information is available, and you can also dial the 211 and you will be connected to resources you may need. And then getting into community with one another. I have a community support page on Facebook, and I make sure to connect with everyone, and we share about our ups and downs and guide each other through that. So that's really important, that we come together and talk about these things. I'd love to learn more about what the Kaizen woman. I love the method and the Kaizen women. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So Kaizen is a Japanese term that stands for, it's the art of mastering, continually improving. And, you know, I had played around with a couple different business names over the years. And when this one hit me, I was like, this is it. This is my life. You know, I shared with you guys already that it was just challenge after challenge after challenge for most of my life, in pretty big challenges. And that for me, it's what I've lived for my whole life. And I know, well, I've seen as I've been growing my community around this, that there are other people that also have a desire to continue to grow and improve and to have honest conversations and to get more powerful at being vulnerable and being good listeners. And so for me, the Kaizen woman is an expression of who I am, but it's not a label that's just mine. It gets to be, and because it is me and I do identify as a woman, that's where the name comes from. It's a personal brand, but we're an inclusive community. We have men in our community that they just want to be around strong, powerful women and support this type of thing. And to me, it's such a beautiful concept that gets to play out in such an individual way. And so I have my Kaizen communication technique, and but really it just, for me, it's offering hope, and I've lived through enough of the continually improving that's again my signature process around teaching energetic intelligence, which is, I've trademarked it, and would love a university study to back up what I have seen over helping hundreds and thousands of clients over 2+ decades of coaching and working with people. Like, I've been in the trenches. And have you ever heard of the crab bucket like analogy, where when when we're in tough situations, if we're surrounded by crabs, like in a crab bucket, if one crab is close to getting out of the bucket, the other crabs will pull them back in. And so who we surround ourselves with is so important. But I know that can be a really hard thing to find people, because sometimes we love people in our life, in our world, we love them, and they're crabs, and we get to still love them. But it's more important than ever, especially with how difficult things are, to find a community where you get to be supported. So that's what my Kaizen woman brand is all about.
That's beautiful. And I think that it is something that our peer group is so important. And remember that as parents too, your children's peer group, and how you're showing up and living your life is going to be experienced, whether you just started at a job or you run the company. It's who you're being and all you're doing that's going to make a difference. And that, making sure that your environment matters, your environment, the music you listen to, the books you read. You started reading Tony Robbins books when you were 16. The things that you fill your mind with and your family's energy with, that's going to make a difference in how the outcomes you have, the results you get in your life.
Yes, I would love to actually add a way that people can tap into this in less than 30 seconds.
Yes.
And that is by using all 5 of your senses. So my first degree is sports medicine, which I've shared with you guys, but this is how you take, like I said, I love simplifying this stuff. So looking at all 5 senses, if you are feeling sad and you think about, what's something I can look at that makes me feel happy? What's something I can listen to that makes me feel happy? What's something I can smell? And smell is the strongest sense tied to memory. So if there's like a perfume that, a favorite grandparent had, or, what's a smell that will help you feel happy? Touch. Is there a certain kind of, you can even, give this to yourself too. It's great. Like if someone wants to give you a foot rub or something, that might be nice. But even just choosing, like, I'm going to just caress my own hand. And it's a small sensation that gives you touch, that makes you feel safe and supported and loved. And you can give that to yourself. And so by using all 5 of our senses, I'm not sure if I said sight, sound, touch, smell. Why am I like, I feel I'm like taste.
So you've got to have a nice cup of coffee or tea or something really healthy, like gluten-free, calorie-free apple pie that tastes like real apple pie or something.
Well, I think it's just about being intentional about how can you use those senses if you want to be more successful, financially. And imagine if you had hit your financial goals, what would you be looking at? What would you be listening to? What's a smell that you can anchor into that visualization process? What's something you could taste? Again, I actually, I very often on my interviews will drink out of a wine glass. I'm kind of notorious for this purple wine glass that I have, but it's just club soda. But the little fizzy bubbles, and if it's like a little dash of cranberry juice sometimes, like it makes me feel fancy and it makes me feel happy. And so we can use all of our five senses to help tap into actually feeling that way. And it's not about pretending that you're not scared or sad or uncomfortable or whatever you're feeling. It's not about pushing it away or ignoring it. It's about saying, this is how I feel, but I desire to feel a different way. That's something that anyone can do very quickly. And the more often you do it, the better you get at it. And you start knowing like, oh, I can get myself in a good mood with this song, or here's my pump me up playlist, or, and it's because as much as community is important, it does start with us taking responsibility for how we show up for ourselves, because that's what teaches other people how to treat us. So when we make ourselves a priority and take a few minutes, and trust me, as a mom, that's one of the biggest things I hear I see is that we put our kids and our families and our clients and, everything else before ourselves. And I think it's really kind of backwards as far as what gets effective results so that people can have happier lives.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. Would you want your child to grow up and put themselves last?
Absolutely not.
And yet that's what we're modeling. And our kids, they will do what we show them, not what we say. Mm-hmm. They're not going to listen to a book or anything that comes out of our mouth. They're going to live how we live. And so that's modeling how to live for whoever it is. It could be a loved one, a neighbor, a friend. We just got a new puppy because now I have 2 college kids home, and because the dorms are still closed in California, and they were both going to school in California. And so now they're home again, and they're like, we want a puppy. So now the energy you bring into that room, even the dog will react. Mm-hmm. If you're all hyper, the dog gets all hyper. If you're angry or sad, or the kids are going through an emotional time, because we are still grieving, we do, and I honor that in our house as much as we need to. And I'm telling you, the dog will react. It'll come sit on your lap and give you a big hug, or it'll be real quiet, like, we got to go to our room right now. And dog will go to her crate, because I'm like, everybody go to your room. And oh man, we're in trouble now.
Well, it's so true. But it's true, like the energy and our emotions. And that's why I think many people are scared to let themselves feel anything too much. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've learned over and over and again, from hearing it from so many different mentors I've had over the years, but also just it's true, is that emotions are always in motion. So, when we have something to grieve, having been through all of those miscarriages, and it's such an intense loss. And I also know that even in the deepest part of it, it's like, I'm not going to feel this forever. Will I always feel a sense of sadness when I remember it? Yes. But it's not going to, in the first part of going through something, you're like, how am I even breathing right now? And again, community is so important there. So many women go through stuff like this alone. And honestly, even the men go through it alone, because people focus on the woman first if they're talking about it. Oh. But there's just these conversations that when we give ourselves permission to feel what we need to feel, and it's okay. It's not about even just using your senses, like I said, to shift how you're feeling. It's not meant to be a Band-Aid or to rush and hurry up and get out of. It's just so that you hopefully everyone listening knows that they don't have to stay stuck there. And that, also happiness or joy or all of these things, they're not permanent either, because emotions are meant to be in motion. It's part of the human experience. And when we can embrace that, it really allows us to tap into living a more, in my opinion, a more fulfilled life of seeing all the colors of feelings and having the level of joy and gratitude I have for even some of the smallest things is because I've been without so much and I've lost so much. And so I could choose bitterness. I could choose anger. I could choose to, crawl in under my covers and like never come out. And there were days that I did that, but I didn't let that become my life. And, I think there's hope in seeing that someone like you, Sheila, has gone through what you've been through and you're still breathing and you still find reasons to smile. One of the things I felt so guilty for smiling, it's like you go days without smiling and then it feels weird to smile, right? Like, I'm like, what's my face doing? Oh my gosh, I shouldn't be smiling. And so it's about, I had to learn how to give myself permission that it's still okay for me to have moments of joy, even though there was, a bigger majority of it was sadness. And then eventually, like, I got to a place where it was maybe 50-50. And then eventually I'm not sad all the time about it, but I can still feel that. And I let myself feel that because it keeps me grounded in being able to be compassionate for other people, even if I don't know what they're going through, right? Like, everyone right now is going through something. There is no way that anyone in the planet is getting through 2020 without being impacted in a way that is bringing up uncomfortable or painful things. And, so by going through this process of learning how to be compassionate with myself, it really allowed me to become even more skilled at being compassionate with others. And I think the world needs more of that right now.
Definitely. Well, we are coming to the end of our interview time, so I'd love for you to share how people can reach you, how the audience can get in touch with you or join some of your programs.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I am at the Kaizen Woman on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find me there. And also, one of my favorite ways to get to know people and interact with people is when they go take my quiz. So bethperry.com/quiz, and you get to discover what your success superpower is. And we have a very easy way to stay in touch that way. And then you'll know all the things. And I would love to know more about you if you go take the quiz. Like, I really do enjoy it when people reply back to the email results and just get to know each other better. I am truly honored to have shared the time today with you, Sheila, and with your audience. And I appreciate everyone just remembering, do your best, and you can master the art of learning how to improve. And this year full of challenges doesn't have to get the best of you.
Yes. All right. Thank you again. We will be right back. Thank you, Beth.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, here we go from my bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. The formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation, wellness and lifestyle design. Applying the Boots formula to lifestyle design. Using the Boots formula, you can go from being stuck, saying yes to everyone, to becoming the woman you want to be. Being. Designing your life starts with the first step. Who are you being? That is going to be different for everybody. And once you've done some assessments to find your temperament, talents, and truth, you can look at how you are different from anybody else. Who are you going to be when you show up now? Who do you need to be to truly be the best version of yourself? How are you going to live your essence and truth? You may have a whole life set up around something that is not true to who you are. Now that you are redesigning your life, whether this is your difficult situation or you're doing so after making it through another rock bottom situation, the gift is being able to set a new foundation, but that means knowing who you're going to be. Orientation. With this orientation, you need to say, this is where I am, and this is what I want. What do you want your life to look like in a year? What do you want it to look like in 5 years? Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what can be done in 5 years. This is a complete lifestyle redesign. You're not just switching one thing or dealing with one emergency situation. You're reconfiguring every system in your life. Order of operations. The first step in the order of operations is to figure out your first priority. If you could just do one thing today that would make everything else easier and make you feel really happy, what would that be? Giving yourself the time you need to think about and do this one thing will make you feel like you took care of yourself, and your whole day will be better. Give yourself those little things, and they might be different each day. They build up, and when you consistently do the first thing you added, you can then add more things, and those build up too. Take it in order of priority. You may need to adjust your relationship or get out of a career that doesn't serve you. That takes time. You're not going to make this choice and then be in the exact life you desire the next day. There are steps in between. If you're not good at the steps, you may want to have somebody help you through that. You may be really great at seeing the vision, but you're not sure how to unravel all those pieces. Or you may be able to see little pieces, but you're not quite clear on the vision. You may need to give yourself a little bit more time than you think. If you make a 1-year plan and a 5-year plan, it may feel like nothing is changing at first. It's subtle. But once you start building, you get to a point where it gets easy. And the fact that you're not waiting to live your life on your terms is so beautiful and freeing and such a wonderful gift to yourself that you won't care if it does take 5 years to get the whole vision of what you want because you're already living it now. You're not giving that happiness to any other person, situation, or thing. It could be that you're in your career still, and you're going to switch over slowly. But how can you incorporate your true essence, talents, and truth in what you're doing today? Can you volunteer or start a side business so that you're actually having that happiness and fulfillment now instead of waiting for a future perfect moment in time? Thinking. Thinking is your mindset. It's setting your intention, and with that comes gratitude. If you're starting over and rebuilding, but your budget doesn't allow for the fancy house or new car that you want, or if you can't start your desired career tomorrow, how can you adjust your mindset and be grateful for what you do have? How can your way of thinking guide you to enjoy where you are now? Your environment matters. Not just the furniture and the decorations, but the energy that fills it. The energy, positive or negative, comes from the people around you, how the objects you surround yourself with make you feel, and the words and images you expose yourself to on the radio, television, and internet. How are you setting up your home? How are you setting up your environment? If you have stress in your office or home, what can you do to shift away from that negative energy? I went to the nail salon, and the news was blaring on the TV, full of war and death and horrible things. I don't want to be bombarded by that negative energy when I'm trying to relax. I know these things happen. I read the news and keep up with current events. But when I'm trying to rejuvenate and take care of myself, I don't want to see those vivid pictures that leave me feeling drained. I have friends, though, who love the news and can't work without it on. Where can you create a sanctuary in your home? Sometimes just removing the television from your bedroom switches the whole energy. It could be as simple as moving things around to create a sacred space in your house. where you can have that thinking time to draw, journal, or write your life vision. You can design an intentional lifestyle that supports your individual rhythms. Once you see it and think it, start acting as if you already have it. You're going to live your best life today in gratitude. You're going to stop waiting to live. As you design your life, you're already in a better mindset. Stepping up. Stepping up is your action step. You are redesigning your life, so you're going to be different. Maybe you recreate your image and go get a haircut, color your hair, or change the way you dress. Maybe you redecorate your house or office. Maybe you are still working at your old career, but you start doing volunteer work related to your passion. Whatever it is, just show up and do it. No waiting. Start small, but step into that new thing. My friend Ellen rode horses for many years, but stopped after she had children. I can't afford it, she told me. So we looked at how to make it happen. I asked her, where's the closest place you can go? What options do you have? After contacting...
If you are just tuning in, this is the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and we are here today on NBC's KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. Today, we are focusing on healing and wellness practices. So one of the things that I've found is that when we've hit tough situations in life, for instance, we talked a little bit about losing a child, and when we hit these type of tough situations in life, there is an opportunity to grow and heal, honor the grieving process, and then to reinvent your life on your terms, creating new sacred ways to honor your loved one's memory, and then moving forward in new and different ways. So I would love to share with you the next thing, which is a small portion of the chapter in my latest best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this chapter speaks about lifestyle redesign. All right, take a listen. Here we go.
Chapter 11. Lifestyle Design. This chapter is going to look a little different than the other chapters. Instead of starting out with a rock bottom moment and ending with that person's moment of empowerment, we are going to compare the lives of two women. The life of Anne. Anne was very athletic growing up. As a young adult, she was active and healthy and loved to exercise. She helped rescue animals, volunteering at the local shelter to share her love with those animals. Then she got married and had kids. Anne gave up a lot of her passions and the things that made her happy in order to please everybody else. Her husband is allergic to animal dander, so she couldn't have pets at home, and she gradually stopped going to the shelter too. She didn't stay as active as she'd been when she was single. She said yes to all her friends, doing anything they asked her to. She cared for a lot of people, but she didn't set boundaries. Anne's days were long and busy, full, but not fulfilling. Anne had a vision of how she wanted her life to look, but she woke up one day and realized that she was living a very different life. Eventually, Anne's health failed. She developed many health issues because she had stopped eating healthy foods, exercising, and taking time to rest her mind. She spent a lot of money on health care instead of spending time staying healthy. When she really needed people to help her, she didn't know how to ask. Some of her friends had more boundaries than Anne, so they said no to her requests, even though in the past she had helped them move or with accounting or babysitting. People weren't willing to give as much as she had, so she was at a loss. And with some of the people in her life who did want to reciprocate, Anne wasn't able to be vulnerable or gracious enough to receive. Anne is at the point of retiring from a job she doesn't love, and she's physically and financially unable to keep up with her friends and family. She sees her friends doing work they're passionate about and talented at, and it affects her self-worth when she compares her life to theirs. She feels stuck, upset, and resentful, and she's angry with herself for letting life slip by. Anne thought she was doing the right things. She was a good student, a good daughter and sibling, the one who didn't need so much attention. She was taught to put everybody else first, and she's done an amazing job of teaching everybody else to treat her like a doormat. She never filled up her own self, and now she has a very painful void in her life. The life of Barbara. Barbara has designed her life and lives it by her design. She has still done things for other people, but she follows her own definition of happiness and success. Interesting things happened in her childhood, but at some point, she decided that she was going to live life on her terms. Barbara made a lot of mistakes. She tried to live her passion 3 or 4 different times in different ways. It didn't work out at first, but she was determined. At first, she wasn't even sure what that looked like, but she knew it would involve art, dance, and educating children. As it unfolded, she started teaching children to read and created a story time program. Looking back, she laughs about her ups and downs. The determination to live her life and work around her passion and her gifts was considered non-traditional, so she experienced some bumps that made her strong and resilient. Barbara kept solid rituals, routines, and boundaries in place. She eats healthy foods and takes care of herself so she can help other people too. She made her self-care a priority, knowing that she was modeling that for her children. Barbara and Anne are the same age, but Barbara looks much younger because she's healthier and happier. She wakes up in the morning and is excited to go to work. When Barbara looks back at her life so far, she's at peace. She knows she's done her highest good. No part of her feels that she wasted time on things that didn't align with her values. She lives exactly the life she was supposed to, the life she chooses. And she's excited for whatever comes next. Again, this is the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest, and I'm giving you some homework. Grab a copy of my latest book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. That's right. If life has knocked you down, get ready to pick yourself back up and give your problems the boot. I look forward to hear about your read, and we'll see you next time. You may get a copy of Bootstraps and Bra Straps on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle.